Let me tell you something that makes most people deeply uncomfortable. Right now, as you watch this, millions of people around the world are sitting down to a meal that would horrify you. And yet, they feel the exact same way about what's on your plate. We're talking about dog meat. But here's what's fascinating: this isn't really about dogs. It's about something far more revealing about human psychology, culture, and the invisible walls we build inside our own minds. In parts of China, Korea, Vietnam, and several other countries, dog meat has been consumed for centuries. In some regions of Switzerland, it was eaten until recently. In certain areas of the Philippines and Indonesia, it still is. And before you think this is just about other places, let me tell you something unsettling. Your great-grandparents might have eaten horse. Your ancestors almost certainly ate animals you'd never consider food today. But when we see images of dog meat markets, something visceral happens. Disgust. Anger. Moral certainty. We don't just think it's wrong. We feel it in our bodies. We know it's wrong. Except, do we? Here's where it gets interesting. The people who eat dogs aren't monsters. They're not psychologically different from you. They love their families. They care about animals. Many of them even have pet dogs they would never dream of eating. So what's actually happening here? Psychologists call this cognitive categorization. Our brains don't see animals. We see categories: pets, livestock, pests, wildlife. And these categories are so deeply embedded that they feel like natural law, like gravity. But they're not. They're learned. They're cultural. They're arbitrary. And once you understand this, everything changes. Let's debunk the obvious assumption first. People who eat dogs aren't doing it because they lack empathy. They're not cruel. They're not barbaric. They're doing something much more human. They're following the invisible script their culture handed them. Psychologists have identified something called the meat paradox. It's the psychological discomfort we feel when we love animals but also eat them. And here's the fascinating part: everyone experiences this paradox. Everyone. The only difference is which animals trigger it. For you, it might be dogs. For someone else, it's cows. For another person, it's nothing at all. Or everything. The real psychology here isn't about dogs. It's about how we manage moral contradictions. We use something called moral disengagement. We create mental categories that allow us to care about some animals while eating others. We tell ourselves stories. Cows are different. Dogs are companions. Fish don't feel pain the same way. Chickens aren't really conscious. But beneath the surface, there's an entire architecture of psychological mechanisms at play. Let's go deeper. Because this isn't just about meat. It's about how we construct reality itself. From the moment you're born, you're being programmed. Not by some conspiracy. By culture. By repetition. By 1,000 tiny moments that tell you what's food and what's not. You see a puppy, you feel warmth. You see a piglet, you feel less. Why? Pigs are smarter than dogs. They're more emotionally complex. They bond with humans. They play. They dream. But you've been conditioned. You've seen dogs in movies as heroes. You've seen pigs as bacon. And this conditioning is so deep, so automatic, that it feels like instinct. It's not instinct. It's programming. Here's something psychologists discovered. We extend moral consideration based on perceived closeness. Dogs live in our homes. They sleep in our beds. They're part of the tribe. Cows live on farms we never visit. Chickens live in facilities we never see. They're our group. They're other. And our brains are wired to care less about the other. People who eat dogs have simply drawn the circle differently. The dog on the street isn't in group. It's food. But the dog in their home? That's family. Different category. Different rules. This isn't hypocrisy. This is how human psychology works. We all do this. We just don't see it because we're inside our own cultural bubble. Now here's where it gets really uncomfortable. When we judge people for eating dogs, we feel morally authentic. We feel like we're standing up for what's right. Pure. Clear. But that feeling of certainty? That's not morality. That's disgust wearing a moral costume. Studies show that moral judgments about food are primarily driven by disgust response, not ethical reasoning. We feel grossed out first. Then we construct moral arguments to justify that feeling. Think about it. Why is eating dogs wrong but eating pigs acceptable? If you say intelligence, you're in trouble. Pigs are brilliant. If you say emotional capacity, same problem. If you say companionship, well, pigs can be companions too. The real answer? Because it feels wrong to you. Because you were taught it's wrong. Because the thought makes you uncomfortable. And that discomfort? That's not universal truth. That's cultural programming. But here's the twist. Here's what makes this really profound. Some people who eat dogs are making a choice. A conscious one. They're saying, I refuse to let Western cultural values dictate my traditions. I refuse to see my ancestors as barbaric. I refuse to let disgust masquerade as ethics. They're claiming cultural autonomy, psychological freedom. And some people who don't eat dogs, they're making the same choice. They're saying, I refuse to participate in a system that treats any sentient being as a commodity. I refuse to let tradition override compassion. Both are acts of ownership. Both are rejections of conditioning. The question isn't who's right. The question is, are you making a choice, or are you following a script you never questioned? Here's what's misunderstood about this entire conversation. We think it's about dogs. About culture. About right and wrong. It's not. It's about the stories we tell ourselves to live with contradiction. It's about the invisible walls in our minds that make some suffering visible and other suffering invisible. The person eating dog meat isn't more or less moral than you. They've just placed the wall in a different location. And once you see the wall, you can't unsee it. You start to notice it everywhere. In how we treat different humans. In how we value different lives. In how we decide what deserves our empathy and what doesn't. Eating dogs isn't the issue. The issue is that we're all eating something. We're all drawing arbitrary lines. We're all pretending those lines are natural law when they're just cultural habit. And the deepest truth? The quietest truth? The one nobody wants to say? There is no objective answer. There's only the choice you make. The line you draw. The suffering you're willing to see and the suffering you're willing to ignore. Here's what I want you to sit with. Not as a judgment. Just as a question. If someone from a dog-eating culture looked at your plate, would they see a moral person? Or would they see someone who's just as blind to their own contradictions as you think they are? We're all inside a framework. A cultural operating system. And that system determines what we see, what we feel, what we believe is right. The people who eat dogs aren't your enemies. They're your mirrors. They're showing you that morality isn't discovered. It's constructed. It's negotiated. It's a conversation between culture, emotion, and choice. And maybe, just maybe, the most ethical thing we can do isn't to judge others for their contradictions. It's to become aware of our own. We're not meant to be morally perfect. We're meant to be conscious. Awake. Willing to question the stories we've been told. The uncomfortable truth is that we all cause suffering. The question is whether we're honest enough to see it. Brave enough to examine it. Open enough to change. You don't have to eat dogs. You don't have to stop eating meat. You don't have to do anything. But you do have to ask yourself, am I making choices, or am I following programming I never questioned? That's the real psychology here. Not of people who eat dogs. Of people who never ask why they don't.